Coral, an underwater fascination touched by the sun and the sea. Over 1 million years ago, in the Pleistocene age, a reef started to form around a volcanic island in the western Pacific. Slowly, so slowly it is almost impossible to comprehend, tiny coral animals called polyps began the life-death cycle that builds such reefs. Their skeletons collected in layers that eventually formed a fringing reef around the island we now know as Okinawa, the major island of the Ryukyu chain. This is a land whose early history can only be deduced from legends. At some time in the distant past, primitive men and women transported children, supplies, and simple tools from the continent of Asia to these islands. Their reasons for coming are unknown. Some were perhaps driven by storms. Some were escaping enemies. Some were driven by hunger to seek richer fishing grounds or better land to till. Prior to the 7th century, nothing is known of either the island or its people. In 616, Japanese annals recorded notice of a southern island people for the first time. For the next 50 years, there were several references to barbarians from the south coming into Japanese settlements. In 753, the name Okinawa was first recorded on a page of history. The report concerned a shipwreck and a Japanese mission to China. During the 6 centuries that followed, the Japanese and Chinese nations struggled for a position of power in Asia, and the island slipped into the backwaters of history. In 1372, the courts of China and the Ryukyu Islands entered into a formal agreement which was political, cultural, and economic in nature, and lasted for 500 years. During that same time period, Japanese influence in the Ryukyu steadily increased. Early in the 17th century, the Japanese lord of Satsuma invaded and took control of the islands, but kept intact the kingdom and its tributary relationship with China. Finally, in 1879, the Japanese central government in Tokyo officially declared Okinawa as a prefecture of Japan. Japan was the first country to recognize the military importance of this island chain. Okinawa was, and is, the Keystone of the Pacific. Its strategic location is why, in early 1945, it became necessary for the United States to occupy this last piece of real estate guarding the Japanese homeland. On Easter Sunday morning, 1 April 1945, American troops began pouring ashore. The battle for Okinawa was underway. For more than 80 days, from cave to cave, from ridgeline to ridgeline, the Americans continued to force their way south against the Japanese army. Finally, on the suicide cliffs at the southern tip of the island, the last scene was played as the 2 Japanese commanders took their own lives to avoid capture. The guns fell silent. The battle for Okinawa was over. The Okinawan people, caught in what they call the typhoon of steel, lost approximately 150,000 people. Japanese casualties numbered 110,000, while the Americans lost nearly 13,000 men. The majority of the 400,000 Okinawans who survived the battle were homeless, hungry, and in need of medical care. The first trickles of aid were in the form of surplus military supplies on the island. Along with American advisors, these supplies were quickly put to use, rebuilding shattered homes. This was the very beginning, the start of 27 years of American influence in the Ryukyu Islands. Industries were developed and put into operation. The economic structure of the island began to take form. Okinawa was once again becoming a home for its people. This is Naha today, a thriving city of 280,000 people. Along its major thoroughfare, Kokusai Street, Americans and Okinawans shop for the necessities and the luxuries as people do the world over. Department stores, small shops, banks, restaurants to suit any taste, curio shops, tourist attractions, and shopping centers. Then there are the people, the old, the very old, schoolboys and schoolgirls, businessmen, farmers, babes in arms, vendors, clerks, fishermen, workers. The spectrum is infinite. With the influx of American occupation forces, attention was focused on opening a network of highways and secondary roads to handle not only the transportation of supplies and building materials, but the increasing number of civilian vehicles. Traffic is a problem here, and one of the prime sources of friction between Americans and Okinawans. Narrow roads, ox carts, trucks, and school children present a real problem. Except where posted, the speed limit is 50 kilometers, or approximately 30 miles per hour. All signs for vehicle and pedestrian movement are designed in the international style. If you bring your car over, become familiar with the regulations and drive cautiously. One of the major undertakings was the rebuilding of schools. Millions of dollars have gone into the support and construction of a school system that now provides educational programs for the youth of Okinawa. Recent expansion of the power systems on Okinawa have reached the point where the demands of the government, the military, and the people can all be met. Water, however, is a different story. For years, there have been intervals when the entire island was required to go on strict rations. In an attempt to alleviate this problem, a massive dam and reservoir was constructed in the Fukuji area on the northern part of the island. Almost every other phase of the Okinawan business and industrial community continued to grow and expand. Naha Port and the nearby Tomari Port handled an ever-increasing number of passenger and cargo vessels of both Ryukyuan and foreign registry. Naha airport traffic has increased to the point where well over 500,000 international and inter-island passengers pass through the terminal area each year. Commercial transportation on the island has grown accordingly. Buses, taxis, and trucks ply the island's streets and thoroughfares, carrying passengers and cargo. In spite of the relatively crowded conditions on the southern half of the island, more industries, more businesses, and more homes are being constructed the year round as the Okinawan people continue to grow and progress and seek their own place in the sun. Okinawa again took on added strategic importance when war broke out in Korea in 1950. Kadena Air Base was used for B-29 strikes against the invading North Korean forces. The Korean conflict ended in 1953, but the build-up on Okinawa continued. Today, the Army, referred to as Okinawa Base Command, is basically responsible for logistic support operations in the Western Pacific area. With a number of commands under its jurisdiction, it also operates the Naha Port area. It is responsible for a large, fully equipped hospital in the Camp Kui area and the Mashinato service area, where vehicles and equipment of all kinds are received and renovated prior to reshipment. In this complex, the Army also maintains massive stocks of all items which may be needed anywhere in the Western Pacific to carry out operational requirements. The Marine Corps contribution to the American population on Okinawa rests primarily with the 3rd Marine Division, a battle-tested division whose sole mission is to deploy on short notice anywhere in the Western Pacific as a part of the U.S.'s Force in Readiness. There are a number of supporting elements, including the Marine Air Station at Futima, which provides support to Marine Air Group 3C and their helicopters, which support the 3rd Division. On the northern part of the island, the Marines have a large training area stretching for miles across almost inaccessible, heavily wooded mountains. Navy mission includes these port facilities in the White Beach area, which provide ships of the 7th Fleet with logistical services, an 800-foot typhoon-proof pier in Kin Bay for loading logistic supplies in the Tengan area, and headquarters fleet activities, Okinawa, at Naha Air Base, where anti-submarine warfare and sea surveillance missions for the 7th Fleet are planned and executed. The primary mission of the Air Force on Okinawa is to support and operate fighter, tanker, and cargo aircraft for the defense of the Western Pacific area. Kadena, once a small Japanese airfield and one of the first objectives of our invasion forces, has grown into this sprawling complex. One of the largest and best equipped Air Force bases in the world, housing both operational and support facilities for Air Force activities in the Western Pacific. With shops, repair facilities, medical facilities, housing, clubs, golf courses, commissary, chapels, schools, exchanges. And just outside Gate 2 is the city of Koza. Here you have easy access to a variety of shopping facilities, much like those found in any similar stateside city. Kadena will seem centrally located to you, a look at a map of this 70-mile-long island reveals that it is located in the south-central part of the island. The bulk of the 800,000 population is centered in the southern half. Nago, with a population of nearly 50,000, is the only large city in the northern part. Most of the north is unpopulated, but parts of it can be reached on secondary roads. The natural scenery is outstanding. It is possible, with a break in traffic and some good weather, to cover the island north to south in one day, starting with the cliff at the southern tip of the island, where the final bitter moments of the Battle of Okinawa were played out. All that remains today are the memorials erected by various prefectures to the men who died. Itoman, the largest fishing village on Okinawa. The ruins of old castles dating back to the 15th and 16th centuries. The beaches. The turtleback tombs scattered across the island. Some of these tombs are hundreds of years old and are considered sacred by the people. If you are an aficionado, you'll be able to see a bullfight nearly every weekend. One slight difference, however. On Okinawa, the bulls fight each other. The men in the arena act only as handlers. Tiny villages along the coast where life goes on much as it has for centuries. Perhaps the only change is the television antennas now spout from each roof. Todoroki Falls, a pleasant stopover point. And for the camera buff, the picture postcard scenery. A booming entertainment and tourist industry has grown up. The price is high if you don't use reasonable care. Today's Okinawans are a composite of the old and the new. East and the West. As with people everywhere, they are responsive to courtesy and consideration. A friendly, self-respecting people who strive to maintain a productive society. Little is known of the origin of the Ryukyuan people. Like their early history, their origin is locked in legend. One theory is that they are principally of Japanese Aborigine stock. Another is that they are of Malaysian ancestry. Whatever their ancestry, the Ryukyuans are a friendly and hardy people, used to the ravages and abuse from both natural and human forces. Their complex culture, predominantly Japanese, is laced with early Chinese associations and strongly influenced by a large American population. Their cultural life has traditionally been filled with concern for nature and family and their interrelationship with the spirits and man. The United States helped the Ryukyuans climb from the devastation of World War II to attain one of the highest per capita incomes in Asia. Giant strides were made in many other areas. This obvious goodwill, coupled with the Ryukyuans' fear of being drawn into future wars because of American military presence, has caused considerable confusion to the Ryukyuans. Confusion that has led to demonstrations by union and labor groups. The 27 years of U.S. influence are history now. With the reversion of Okinawa to Japan in May 1972, control of the Ryukyu Islands passed from the United States to the Japanese government. With this change came the use of Japanese yen for most purchases on the economy. Okinawa is now one of the 47 prefectures under the administration of the Japanese government. A status of forces agreement is in effect. You are the guest of a foreign government and subject to its laws and regulations. There may be other changes in the future requiring both restraint and discipline on your part. But there is nothing in the regulations stating that you must enjoy your tour here, or for that matter, like the people. You could spend all your time in the large American community and never realize you were away from the States. But if you have an empathy for people and a desire to learn about new cultures, new customs, and new traditions, you'll find this could be one of the most rewarding tours of your career. You have a great responsibility in the accomplishment of the United States Mutual Security Pact with the government of Japan. The contribution made during your stay on Okinawa is of vital importance to the present and future security of the East Asian region. Okinawa is the Keystone of the Pacific and will remain so for many years to come.